Just sitting here in a Walmart parking lot. I was thinking about tornado stuff and the little experiment I did, and I had just finished a Twitter conversation with some tornado chasers slash researchers, and they do a lot of good stuff. They do a lot of awesome stuff. They're definitely pivotal. I'll leave their names unmentioned, um, and I don't think that the conversation ended well. I told them as much as I could, and I intended from the beginning to tell them. I was just trying to feel them out, how I did the experiment, but I didn't tell them at first. And one of the guys ended up telling me that since I can't repeat the experiment, that I had to induce rotation to it, which I didn't, and I can repeat it. I can repeat it. I can do lots of stuff with it because I have repeated it. So, anyways, but yeah, so I was just thinking about that and reading up more on the multiple vortices, multiple vortex tornadoes, which seem to be, from footage I've seen and the research, they seem to be more towards the beginning of the tornado. And that's when my little experiment, even though it's not a thunderstorm, it's not the same scenario, that's where they were. They were in the beginning. Mine didn't last that long, and but I want to try turning up the power and decreasing the pressure in the experiment to see if they last longer. But it is interesting that they're in the beginning. And I was wondering from what I saw if in the beginning of the tornado getting itself set up, because it has to get the air on the ground to cooperate. It's getting the air and within a certain vicinity to cooperate with it, so that pressure gradient can get equalized as fast and as orderly, as fast and efficiently as possible. So it's got to get the air on the ground to cooperate with it, which is what I keep saying. And I think as it's doing that, you got, well, let me take that back. I'm sure throughout it seems like it gets more stable. As it gets more stable, I'm assuming that the airflow on the ground coming into the tornado is more uniform. But in the beginning, it's not. And like if you watch some of the footage of the beginning of the El Reno tornado, that thing's going crazy in the beginning. It's tilting and doing all kinds of stuff, and you can see it turning sideways and dust being kicked up. You can see the multiple vortexes, and then eventually it cleans up. It has satellites at some point, and as it cleans up, it just gets a straight up and down, huge wedge tornado, record breaking, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, my point is that in a little experiment, it has times like that too, where it's trying to get everything together, and you can see the air because the driest fog shows the air on the ground, when in real life in a tornado you can't see it until it kicks up dust or condenses or gets debris or whatever. But in the little experiment, you can see the air on the ground, what it's doing before it comes in to the tornado. And so there's a point where this air comes in more rapidly than it was before, and when it does, it has more momentum, and it hits the area of circulation and gets spun up inside of it, and it spins up a subvortex, a single subvortex that's like really, really fast. I mean, really fast. It seems to me to be one of the fastest ones. And so I was just thinking out loud about how in the beginning phases of a tornado that you got air coming at different velocities coming into the tornado. And I think I would just assume that would contribute to the multiple vortexes. And then also in real life, and what I could do in the experiment is put little obstructions on the ground. There's probably all kinds of eddies entering into the tornado too. But as far as how that doesn't affect the tornado later, I'm not exactly sure. But that's just, again, thinking out loud. So I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about how the little octopus arm, the single one that forms, being that the air was visible, you could see the air traveling horizontally across the ground, but being pulled into the base of the vortex. And when it encounters the air that's traveling vertically, because of the inertia, it still wants to it still wants to keep going. So when it hits the vertical air, it gets a rapid change in direction. It loops back. It loops back on itself, and it spins up into a vortex. And then that little bitty vortex arm, it'll try to reach up to somewhat. It'll reach up towards the low pressure, and like in mine, you can see it puff out a little puff of air up towards the low pressure area. And I thought that was pretty cool. But that's what I saw, and I just don't see how it's not any different in real life. You got your air hauling butt around the tornado, getting pulled into it, and all of a sudden it's going to run into it vertically. It's going to halt and run into air that's traveling upward, and it's going to loop back on itself, and then it's going to spin up. And then you already got low pressure, so that spin is going to try to connect itself to the low pressure. And then, like, one of the most visible pictures I've seen, they're kind of more sticking out to the side. They're not exactly leaning up, but that could be centrifugal force, gravity, stuff like that. And plus the tornado is a whole lot bigger. But just some base level similarities is pretty cool in the experiment with the horizontal vortex that wraps around the circulation at one point and travels up it. It spits out this other kind of octopus arm looking thing that looks pretty cool. So it reminds me of some stuff in real life, and I just wanted to document this stuff along the way, and just put it on YouTube. And one of the main reasons is, like I said, I'm not in the community. You know, I'm a nobody. I don't have anybody to tell me I'm wrong, to say, well, research says this, to criticize me or anything. So that I don't have a huge ego to be crushed. So people can chime in, and that's what I wanted to do. I mean, because like I said, I'm not connected in the community. I don't have all these followers and all this other kind of stuff. So those are just some thoughts for now.